Hello, boys and girls. We are live. Thursday, 9th of April, 2020. As you can see, we have this beautiful setup on the screen, which means we are doing what is technically called a display capture. Everything I show on my screen, you can see. That's not optimal, but that's the way it's gonna be because I can't. There is no way to get a camera going, showing this drawing tool up here and the game. Yeah, I don't think it's possible to do with today's technology. So you have to deal with not having my face on the screen. I'm sure you can live with that. Today we will be streaming and showing and introducing a pretty old game, and it's a war game. It's a strategy game of immense proportions. It's called War in the East by Gary Grigsby. I guess this game is about 10 years old. It had a predecessor called In War in Russia that was about 25 years old, and I think you played it on the Amiga and maybe the Commodore 64 and 128. Very old computers, ASCII graphics. So it has roots back in the 70s, 80s, and as such I would call it a computer version of a board game. It has hexagons, 6 edges on a square. Okay, and we have got commercials on YouTube, which is my playlist with sorry. Yeah, they haven't set this up quite the way I would like. But hey, kind of works. Back to the game. You can play either as the Germans here, or you can play as the Soviet Union. So it's a two-side game. It doesn't really allow for more than two players. Of course, you can play a part of the game and then send the save file to the next player and then to the next player and on and on. So there are multiplayer versions of this, but it's not made to be played more than 2 players against each other. And it's not real time at all. You play I go, you go, the old classical, exactly like any board game you play, that first the Germans plays his turn, and then the Soviet Union plays his turn, and then you take turns. They don't play at the same time, like some modern war games do. The war goes on between 1941 to 1945. There are smaller scenarios, but the grand campaign is the entire so-called Eastern Front from the German perspective. The Great Patriotic War, as it's called in Russia, or was in the Soviet Union, which is probably a more adequate title, since the Eastern Front from the Russian perspective would be over in Siberia, right? This would be called the Western Front from a Russian perspective. We'll call it War in the East, the Eastern Front, because that's just the way, although a bit inaccurate and anachronistic, that's just the way it usually is. We have some music going on in the background which is to create a bit more of atmosphere for me when I am playing. Every turn you move all your pieces or not, and that portrays 1 week of the war. So there are 52 turns each year, and there's about what is it, 41, 42, 43, 44, half of 45, 4.5 years. I think it's about 260 turns, a full-length campaign. And it takes quite a few hours to play just one turn if you configure everything. Because there are literally 1,000 playing pieces for the Russian side, a bit fewer for the Axis. Well, of course, the Axis constitutes Italian, Romanian, Bulgarian, some Bulgarian, Hungarian, Finnish troops as well. You don't have any naval units. You only have land units and air units. The map has railroads, rivers, clear terrain, forests, cities. Sorry, it seems I will be if I play with music, I will have to skip ads every single video. You can't log into YouTube while streaming. Hooray, another technical issue I can't solve. I promise, I'll get this set up in a good way one day, but I just can't at the moment. You can play against the computer. You can play computer versus computer, but even though I'm by far no expert at this game, it's way too complicated. I don't think anyone ever learned how to play this game as a real professional. But I am playing against a human opponent. Some guy from Poland, I believe. I met him online on the forums of the makers of this game, Matrix Games. You can also pick up opponents on the Discord channel for War in the East. And we just send save files to each other with email, or you can send it via file upload transfer at Discord. So it's kind of a gentleman's agreement that you don't edit or cheat or save scum or rehost and etc. But I do find that most players are mature, older, and in it for the experience, not just to winning the game. And as you can see, we have reached turn 11, which means we're in the week from I guess the 28th of August 1941 to 7 days, a bit into September will be when the turn 12 starts. I think 7 days from now turn 12 starts. And I have played a couple of hours on this turn, so it's mostly done. We're at the end of turn 11, but that works for an introduction, explaining and showing off the game, and maybe this will not be very interesting for players that already played War in the East, since I won't be moving many counters. So it's more of an introduction to players that might be interested in playing a real proper war game. And for people playing War in the East, I'll explain the current situation, so it will be a little bit like a live visual after action report stream. So quite a mix there of different purposes and intentions. And also, of course, I even though I don't have any viewers at the moment, I stream and document this. It will be possible to view this on Twitch, and I might get it up on YouTube one day as well. So what happens is that Operation Barbarossa, Germany invades the Soviet Union 22nd of June 1941, and the Soviet forces are woefully unprepared for the invasion, and the game simulates this by Germany having the ability to really knock out a huge amount of forces, both air and ground forces, standing along the Polish border here next to Warsaw. This happens in every game. The Soviet Union loses massive forces. So far, I have lost nearly 1.7 million men in casualties captured. Most of them would have 1 million is captured, and they were disabled and killed casualties. And Germany has only lost 160,000, so it's a ratio of 1 to 10. Yes, it's a detailed game. It's a very detailed game. You can go down to squad level and individual weapons in this game. It's ridiculous, and you have millions of soldiers under your command. The different armies. Germany is currently fielding 3.4 million men. For anyone who already played War in Russia, War in the East, this is nothing new. This is more to explain the level of detail for anyone just interested in getting an overview of the game. What might be more interesting is that how much is the Red Army growing in size. You start at around the same size as Germany, I believe, and then depending on how much encirclements and how much reinforcements you're able to field, the Red Army will grow or decrease in size. And the first part of the game is really a question of how many units of the Red Army can the German panzers and destroy, and how far can they push into Russia, how many factories, industries can they capture and prevent the Soviet Union from relocating to the east all the way here. Not quite Siberia, but I guess the beginning of the Ural Mountains. I heard that some German players have been able to push at least the AI all the way over to the map edge, but with decently average players like we have, I would call myself an intermediate player, maybe more of a beginner really, and my opponent is about the same level, which means we are having a good time. It's an even game, and it's not settled in any way. So the Soviet Union and the Red Army is desperately trying to hold on without being overwhelmed and destroyed until the false Rasputitsa hits, the muddy rain period in October. The weather is set in the normal campaign, but you can have random weather, so you don't quite know when winter and mud is going to hit. But we are playing with historical weather because it's more fair, even though it's a little bit less fun because it makes the game predictable. But if one side is very lucky or unlucky with the weather, it can make too much of a difference. So we're going with a fair alternative here, which means I played the Soviet Union, the Red Army, and the USSR, and I know that turn 17 we will have mud. And I've been pushed back relentlessly, just trying to hold on to as much terrain as possible while saving as many units as possible. And I'm just longing for turn 17 so I get a respite and I can reinforce and strengthen my weak lines. And here I have a little drawing tool that I'll be using to illustrate certain developments up until now, as a recap of what has happened. Guess this will have a nice little neutral, maybe a German black Panzer. Well, the normal development happened with Army Group North taking Riga and pushing Pskov, which I couldn't hold on to. It's very difficult in the current version. From when the German panzers reach Pskov, you don't quite know where they're going after that. Are they going to push straight forward to Leningrad and try to take it by frontal assault, cut it off by the sea? Or will they take a right swing up across and try to cut off Leningrad from a wider encirclement? And as you can tell, in this game the Germans very much took a huge right swing strategy, and I was weak along the river line here, and he pushed through, and this gap, it looked like Leningrad was going to fall very rapidly in this campaign. Further north, I abandoned Hangö, or Hanko, as it's called here. I tried to pull back from the border. Sorry, I'll delete that. I tried to pull back my forces from the Finnish border and save them as much as possible to the no Finnish advance line. The Finnish forces can't go further than this unless the Germans take Leningrad. But the Finnish were very successful in catching up to stragglers, so I actually took some losses in Finland, which wasn't very good, especially considering the pressure here. In the center, though, there was a small encirclement around Smolensk. I had a skirmish line here with some militia, some low-quality troops that I more or less sacrificed throughout here to prevent him from getting a foothold in the forest east of Smolensk. And I used that time that bought me to establish a line in the forest east of Smolensk. So no huge losses here. Just have to watch what we're listening to. Oh, it's just a lot of hurrah videos. We're not gonna watch that. Let's go for the next one. I wish I knew if the music volume was good compared to my mic output. I guess we'll know one day. In the center, I had to fall back from the major river Dnieper here, and I just didn't have the forces to defend. So nothing much happened here except me fighting a fighting withdrawal to this river line here at Bryansk. And I'm now sitting in a, it's a thin line. Would it be going here from here we go. From Smolensk really down to Bryansk and all the way down to Kursk, but the Germans are only skirmishing this with a thin guard line of infantry troops, divisions, which means he can't really easily push through, push back, do any encirclements. Well, my army is weak, so I obviously can't counterattack him. But this is more or less a stalemate, a quiet part of the front. But what did happen was the Germans, the evil Germans, panzers, they pushed quite a few panzers down from Minsk, took this clear terrain here and crossed the two rivers and got all the way down here to Gomel. Again, I threw in some militia, hastily recruited new divisions. I just threw them out here to slow him down. So there were some small minor encirclements here, but I tried to establish a front line on the northern major river here. Couple of turns ago. And the reason I wanted to cover this front is when we come to the a bit more southern front, is that I made a rather successful withdrawal to the Dnieper and established a major river is harder to cross for the attacker. So I had quite a stable defense here. And this area covers the major town of Kiev, Dnipropetrovsk, and also all the industry and airplane factories here in Kharkov and Poltava. I hope I'm not butchering the Russian pronunciation of these towns all that much. So we'll call this the, I guess, the southern front, the south, but we also have to consider the deep south. Well, what happened down here? Well, I can't remember. I'm mixing up the two games I'm playing, but I managed to pull back quite a few forces from the Ukraine this way, and of course I wasn't able to establish a river line defense early on here, so I pulled back into Odessa, and then I choose to send forces north quite early, actually, all the way from turn 1, the first week of the war. I started to send high quality infantry divisions just scrambling back from the Polish border to the north up towards Moscow and further on towards Leningrad. So I was weakening my southern defenses. Historically, Stalin and the Stavka was more afraid of the German army entering the south, the Ukraine, and taking all the grain and the resources and the industry here in the Donetsk basin, and even further down here around Stalino and even Rostov. So the Russians start with their best and most powerful forces in this area around here. And a certain measure of the early campaign successes is how many forces can the Red Army, the Soviet Union, pull back and establish a defense line here? Can they save the industry in the major industry centers here, or will the Germans overrun it? As far as I understand, you can lose quite a lot of industry and still be, it doesn't make a huge amount of difference. I am not experienced enough in playing a long war and matching game to actually say anything about that. But in this match, I've been very successful establishing forward positions around cities, and then pulling out with rail capacity the industries. So Germany hasn't captured. I don't think they captured any industries in this match. But I guess it's good for Russia, for me, my side. But if say you can lose 1/3 of your industry and still be able to build everything you need, I don't quite see what the stress is about. But Germany wasn't quite that successful at catching up and overrunning industries. I'm trying to recall. A few turns back I made a mistake, nothing vital, but I made a seaborne evacuation of Odessa that is quite a fort, and it's a port and a harbor, and I pulled back my forces. I should have stayed here. This allowed the Romanian army and the German forces around here to push further east earlier than they would otherwise have been. I misunderstood how the fortification system worked in the game, and I was afraid I was going to lose troops in Odessa when he assaulted it. But anyway, that's over and done by now. Next time I will fight tooth and nail for this city. So that should put us about halfway to where we are now, with the Germans established far into Russia. The rail line, Germany had to reconfigure the rail line width, the gauge of the railway, so their supply trains could catch up. So the Germans were running out of supplies standing around here at the Dnieper, halfway into Russia. So I get a little bit of a respite, and which allowed me to send forces from the east, newly raised divisions, and form my defenses here. But the second part of the German offensive was when, a bit by surprise, I underestimated the ability of the panzer formations, the tank divisions of the German army. And from the beachhead around Gomel, the German panzers streamed all the way down to here. It was a huge advance, and it cut off an entire line of Soviet divisions. I had pulled back from the Dnieper because I knew this maneuver was coming in one way or that, but I can't know if the Gomel beaches was going to go up to the north, straight east, or just to the south. And I always think that, oh man, can the Panzers really in 1 week advance from around here to all the way down here? Of course, this was a match with a bit of a advance. Well, the Panzers met up with German infantry pinning my forces at the river. So the only good part about this maneuver was that I managed to open the pocket, and these pockets survived for another turn. But if we scroll down here, we can see the brown counters. They are the Russian units. Blue, Romanian. Green, Hungarian. Grey, German. Tan, Slovakian infantry. So I still have some forces here that will be they will capitulate eventually, probably next turn, but they managed to slow down a part of the Romanian army at least. I lost 15 or more divisions in this encirclement. A few tank divisions, most of them average infantry divisions. That it just broke the entire line open. It was a fatal, and one of those fatal encirclements that tend to happen in the summer of 1941. I'm just happy that I had started to pull back from the Dnieper river line and moved back a couple of hexes. I could have moved back even a little bit further, but then I just suspect that the Panzers would have taken a wider swath like this and captured them. So the only thing I could have done is moved back one turn before that, and then moved back the turn before the encirclement all the way over here to save my army. But then I would have left this very nice defense line around Kiev, and it just felt like, oh, I needed to stand and fight. I needed to slow down the Germans, and I really can't handle these encirclements. There's no way you can stop the German panzer formations in 1941. It's just a matter of lessening the losses and slowing them down. I would consider these 15 divisions kind of a necessary sacrifice to buy some time before the fall and the bad weather hits. So hopefully it was a worthwhile. But it always hurts to open up a save and see that an entire part of the front is encircled, and you know they're just gonna die. And it was probably 150,000 troops that was encircled, to very little losses for the German army. So a hugely successful operation. And also, interestingly enough, that is what happened historically. Whereas the German generals wanted to, when they'd taken Smolensk, go straight towards Moscow, Hitler insisted that they'd go south and encircle Kiev and the army formations here. But the Red Army lost like 660,000 troops. I only lost, say, 150,000. So I did better than historically. Since then, well, this operation, we can see there, this is a motorized division with the two dots. The cross, the X indicates pure infantry, and these circles, these are panzer tank divisions. They're very fast, very powerful, very strong. Those are the ones I'm afraid of. And my scouting planes haven't really discovered where the German forces are setting up for the next offensive. I think he's pulled back his panzer corps, and they're sitting a bit behind, waiting for supply, ammunition, fuel, and reinforcements to catch up with them. So the question is, I'm asking myself now, is where will the next strike come from the German player and the Wehrmacht, the German army? So since we are in the south, let's begin with my setup. And I certainly hope my opponent will not be watching this, at least not after a few turns has passed as a gentleman's agreement, because this will give him a huge amount of useful information. I guess I could survive if he would do that. I mean, that probably would be interesting for him to see my setup. The fog of war, the hidden perspective of I don't know exactly. I've been sending scout planes out there, the red circles, to find out what the German dispositions are. So I know where to. The problem is I don't have a lot of reserves to deploy. If I'd find out, oh, he's gonna break through here, yeah, what the hell am I gonna do about it? Pull back maybe? I can't really send a locally strategic reserve to deploy behind as a second or third line here. But I am using newly arrived forces that are on refit and reserve, like training and refit mode, to establish fortifications. When a unit sits still, they build trenches, pillboxes, forts, stuff that protects the troops. And the Crimea here has very few entrance points, and I have weak but still they build forts onto the entrance, because of course Russia, in case they break through the river line to the north, you want to defend the entrance gate to the Crimea as long as possible. And once they break through here, because if the German army, it's like an 800-pound gorilla. Where does an 800-pound gorilla go? It goes wherever the hell it wants. And if the German army wants to go down into Crimea, yeah, they go here. You can't stop them. It's just a question, maybe, but then they can't go. The gorilla can't go anywhere else. And then we have Sevastopol down here, which is a major fortified military port harbor. And I'm trying to set up a small forward fortification line here. And also I have forts in the different ports around here. So very weak forces. I only think I have 2 full-size mountain divisions on the entire Crimea. The rest is just basically cadre, small formations, and cavalry and forts. So very little real forces, but small, minor second line echelon troops are setting up a second line of defense here. Along the Dnieper, which is not only covered by a major river here, but also has marsh, bog, like wet grounds. This is great for defense. And the circle, the red circle, indicates the level of fortifications I built, with 2 being basically what you had before the enemy arrives. Then you can start build up to 3 when you're next to the enemy. But 2 is a decent number. 1 not so good. Takes a couple of turns to build up a full fort. So as you can tell, I have mountain divisions, the little black triangle on the bottom of the infantry cross tells me these are mountain divisions. And the Soviet mountain formations, they are well trained, they have high morale, they're larger than regular infantry divisions, so these are powerful defensive forces. I believe these 2 numbers, 8 is the combat value and 27 is the modified combat value, which means 8, which is quite good, becomes 27 because he's in a fort, he's in a marsh, and he's behind a river. So the Romanian troops here, if they want to attack, this is an estimate 27 on the defensive power. And as you will see later, if you're new to these kind of games, 27 is a very powerful defense. 31, 21, 35. So even though I only have 1 division in each of these hexes, it still is quite a challenge for the rather weak Romanian army to break through here. I'm actually hoping to hold the Romanians here, since he hasn't concentrated strong German divisions here. Since this is the direct route and along the railway to Crimea, here's where I have my strongest forces from the green North Caucasus military district. On this side of the river, I have weaker formations, some cavalry. One line across means cavalry, so horses. Yes, you thought everyone was going by car and tank and half tracks in World War II? No, no, no. Most transportation was done by horse and cart. But these are, I don't know, not Cossacks per se, but cavalry formations. They're good in march and they're not strong, not as strong as a regular infantry division, but they are okay here. So a bit of a skirmish line here, but I don't see that the Germans want to go over here. They won't have supplies. If they find themselves here, where they're gonna push to the east, it's a bit way down here to Crimea. They can't really encircle me, I hope, with the infantry forces they have here. So this is a bit of a weak side of the line. Then from the Dnipropetrovsk line, very early in the game, in the match, in the war, I started by sending troops to this part of the front here. It's a minor river, and there are some provinces here that are open ground. These are very difficult to defend, especially if there is panzers coming here, because armored formations with tanks, they are obviously best in open ground. So now I managed to build level 3 forts here, and I even had a second line behind it. And I managed to scrape together not only a few infantry divisions in each, one infantry division in each province, but also I have an army with circles and cross X's with wheels, dots, motorized infantry that are standing here and reinforcing this line, making it quite strong even though it's in open terrain. So we get defense values of 18, 21, 19, 23, 27, 32, 36, 19. It's a rather strong line, especially considering the yellow Italians are here. One German high quality mountain division is what I see as a skirmish line of German infantry divisions. This looks like a more defensive setup by the Germans. One motorized infantry division as a reserve in case I would push forward and make an offensive. This is to stop the gap. So here we have a couple of mountain divisions. Looks more like a reserve. So really, at the current stage of the war, I don't see an immense threat to this line, which is great because I have two cities here. I can't pronounce this one. Let's try Zaporizhzhye. They are full of industries, or they were, but I have evacuated it over the turns before, so they are rather empty. But I want to defend this river line as a second. Oh, sorry, what happened? Oh, shoot. I want this to be my secondary defense line in case they break through here. The forts I was building back here behind the Dnieper river, lower Dnieper, is they are decaying because I don't have any defensive forces in them any longer. Forts disappear after a while if you don't have troops in them, and you can't have troops everywhere. That's just you're not strong enough to have that. But I am being a sneaky little bastard by constructing a. Let's zoom out. I have a secondary line coming up here with the little parachute indicates paratrooper divisions. No, brigade, sorry. They're smaller formations, high quality, so I use them in the second line and just build forts with them. Now we're gonna come to the part of the front. We call it the southern part of the front, where I took all the losses. I have managed, even though I took 15 divisions losses, to establish a front line. What would be a good color for the? I wish I had Soviet red. I probably should update and get the paid version. Purple. I managed to establish a front line from the Dnieper all the way up to Kursk. Again, I had second line formations, building a few forts here before I fell back. So I had a couple of forts ready when I took my scrambling survivors back from the debacle that this encirclement around here was. Oh, and down here. So I just ran for my life and set up here. And the last turn, I was very, very weak. I had almost nothing because I had forces coming from my Dnieper river line here. They had to scramble back and reinforce up here. It was almost empty in this entire central part. If the Germans had just pushed here, they could have pushed me back and taken a lot of territory that I couldn't defend. I was wide open after losing the entire two armies just disappeared. But I suppose the Germans preferred to rest and refit his mobile operations for the next couple of turns. The thing is, the game changes. The developers actually, well, not the developers, fans keep changing, producing patches, balancing it, and I believe the Germans has been quite a bit too strong in the latest iterations of the game. So now they made supply a little bit more difficult for the Germans to gain, and I guess the German advance is a little bit slower than it used to be a couple of versions back. I have no insight in this since I'm not playing the Germans, but my opponent said that, oh my god, I have such difficulties getting supply pushed up. And it also depends how successful he has been by building railroad lines. I don't know where his railroad lines are. I did delay him a little bit, so maybe he's not quite as far east as he could have been due to my defenses earlier. But anyway, considering the catastrophe that happened, I'm quite happy with the way turn 11 turns out, with a double line, sometimes 3 or even 4 units that deep, and a certain amount of fort levels appearing. We got 0, 2, 1, as you can see here. But the combat values of these units is very low. There's a bunch of cavalry which has almost no combat value, paratroopers which are too weak to be in the front and too valuable. They should be in the back line building forts. I have these guys which are an anti-tank artillery brigade. It's only 5,000 men with 136 guns. So these are basically a small unit with a lot of cannons, anti-tank guns and artillery. They're not supposed to stand in the front line and defend like this. So I just thrown in a line of those to slow any German panzer breakthroughs down and get an extra line. And I managed to push out some newly recruited infantry in the front line so I could pull back my tanks, because this green front, southwestern front under Kirponos, was basically halved in size in the encirclement. So I had very little troops. I only had tank and motorized forces to put in the front line here, or actually over here, a bit further east. And I couldn't defend with that, and I don't want to risk all those tanks. So I just pulled back and pulled back and pulled back. And now finally this turn I had prepared those infantry forces in the back around Moscow, and I railed them down here. They went by railroad and deployed here, and was assigned to a new army, or an army that had lost all its previous divisions. And as the Germans experienced in the real war new Soviet divisions were just popping out of their ground like where the hell did this come from? They had so many reserves that they could raise new formations. How many divisions the Germans destroyed, there would always be new reserves and reinforcement coming. But we're not seeing high quality divisions in a prepared defense line, in a strong terrain feature here. The Soviets are defending in the middle of the eastern Russian plain here. It's just grassland. There's no rivers, no forest, nothing. So it's excellent terrain for German offensives. And I haven't been able to dig in and construct fortifications. As you can see here, I have some cavalry formations building a little Orel-Kursk fort line behind this river, but I'm just very worried about this because I know there are strong motorized mobile formations behind there that crushed my Dnieper-Kiev line before. But it's better than nothing. It's looking better than last turn. I am very scared he will use this stack of units along with maybe tanks here. I can't really tell, even though I've been scouting with scout planes, recon planes, if these are tanks. Maybe they have a lot of fuel so they can advance very far. So I wouldn't be surprised next turn if the Germans makes a breakthrough somewhere. Let me paint. Let's go with the evil German Panzer Black. I would suspect the German infantry formations from around here to maybe make a push this way, and then he will use his tanks, his armor from around here to break through and maybe pin me here and, I don't know, make an encirclement, or here, an encirclement here. And I wouldn't be surprised next turn to see pockets forming here, maybe here. I'm really hoping this 4 deep Kursk line is going to hold. Now I had two choices. Fall back from this river line. I had kind of a fort river line here with a couple of forts, so I've been falling back 1, 2, 3 turns. I could have fallen back even further. Sorry, this is getting a bit clogged up. I could have fallen back even further, I suppose. But hey, I have some forest, light forest. I have a river. I have some forts. I have some new infantry that showed up here. This is a new one. These are new ones. So the cavalry could fall back and form a second line. I have a minor secondary line and even a minor third line. Do I want to run again, or am I willing to accept a potential encirclement of these units here? As I said, the 800-pound gorilla goes wherever it wants, and if I wanted to go somewhere, I guess I wanted to take this area around here, spend a turn or two cleaning these guys up, maybe allow me to rail down new forces and set up here. It's I can't be strong everywhere. It's just the way of the game. I either fall back, lose more ground, or I use these fortifications and hope for the best. I'm hesitant if I'm doing the right thing here. I'll be honest. This might have been better off falling back this part of the line because it's so weak. I guess we'll see. I honestly don't know if I'm doing the right thing here. I probably open up the next turn, save, and I see all these troops being dead, and I tell myself, oh shoot, I should have fallen back. I guess I could have formed a new line along maybe from around Kursk here, up along this river, these forests in the open here, and something like this, and just pull back. Shoot! Now I'm looking at the situation, maybe that would have been the right thing to do. The thing is, the first thing I did was move up new divisions. So now they're standing there and they don't have enough movement to move back. I'm kind of stuck on sitting here. So let's do a bit of role playing here. Stalin says to the Stavka, the Red Army High Command, here's order 227, not one single step back. You defend every square feet of Russian soil. And the generals just say, okay, let's do that. So here's the line. Now, I wish I knew what was in these hexes. I'm thinking tanks hiding here. I'll probably pay the price for that. Just that would open up Bryansk and Orel. Those are cities, but I evacuated all industries, so if I lose them, I just lose a little bit of population and manpower growth, and it's not the end of the world. It's not vital territory to hold. I guess what I'm fighting for are really these level 2 forts. I evacuated this corner with the marsh and some nice forts here, and I fell back from this river line, and I fell back from this river line. You know, you have to fight somewhere. And also, I heard of strategies where the Soviet player just keeps running and running and running and falling back all the way to down to Lipetsk and Voronezh, and I don't think it's fair to the German. He needs the chance to encircle me. I guess it's part role playing historically for fun, and part that I think that this might be the best option to slow down the German army just a few more weeks turns until winter arrives, by maybe sacrificing this part of the line. I will explain this. The colors, if you don't play this game, there's a hierarchy where Stavka has 5 X's, so it's the highest HQ, High Command, with Timoshenko, Marshal Timoshenko as the commander. Under him, we can see there goes a lot of lines like this. These are command lines, and the light blue ones goes to HQs, and each color on the map is a so-called Soviet front. So the green front here is it has 5 X's as well. Southwestern front, it's Kirponos, who's the commander. I can check subordinates. I'm taking a break a little bit from the strategic position here now and explaining the game. So if you already know everything about the game, you can skip ahead to this part. So this front, this would be an army group in the British and American armies, a Heeresgruppe in the German army. So that roughly equals a front. It has 354,000 troops, 3,600 guns, 3,200 tanks. That's a lot of tanks, because in this open terrain I've focused. They only have 86 airplanes. That's not a lot. So anyway, all the green guys here, they are kind of like in the same group of units, the Southwestern Front. Each front is then subdivided into armies. Here we have the Bryansk front. It's a small front, it's only half size. It's purple, and it defends this part of the line. So it doesn't have a huge part to defend. And I don't know. How much is this a threat to the Bryansk front? I don't know. Let's hope for the best. But in any case, what's interesting here now is that wait, I'll just check on the music. What the hell? I got some Irish music. I don't want that. Give me a second. Interact. You can't go back. So I don't want to listen to this. That's not what I ordered. Okay. Browser source. Refresh. Nope. Nope. Sorry. This is so stupid. Here are my Russian music. But I had to put it into the streaming software. I apologize for this, but where the hell did it go? Here we go. Where were we? I'm taking my time of playing this. So if I have a unit which is a little bit better than average, I manually go in and put red color on it. So these guys here, they're better than average units. They have experience and morale in excess of 40. And 45 is kind of the max morale. It is the max morale for Soviet divisions. So I would call them, in an advanced squad leader perspective, first line divisions. It's like, before the war, how did the Soviet headquarters see that? Like, these are the kind of divisions we want. They are trained. They're not elite. They're not super good soldiers or anything, but they're trained. They're well equipped. They know what they're doing. So they're good quality divisions. I don't want to lose them, but I can't afford them to pull them back and save them in the second line. So these guys, they have to be in the front line. Whereas purple are raw recruits or militia or second line troops. They have lower morale. They have less experience. They might be more and have good equipment. I don't know about that. That's more of the combat number. But for sure, they are sacrificial divisions. They are not well trained, and I want to put them in the front. And if they get encircled and destroyed, so be it. But if I lose this part of the front line, I will more or less only be sad about these divisions. I don't want to lose cavalry, but these guys, they are cannon fodder divisions. They don't matter. I can replace those troops. As you see here, the Soviet morale max is 45. And these have been resting and refitting in Moscow, having fun going to the cinema and watching communist propaganda movies. So they have the max morale, which makes them as efficient as possible. They can build up to 80% of their max force. So I'm not giving them as much men and equipment as is humanly possible, but they have a good chunk of 80%. And here I can see experience on all their different artillery pieces and rifle squads. So it's 29 experience on the rifle squads. Yeah, whatever. So it's a decent division, but not great. So if you see red divisions, you know they are better than average first line. They're valuable enough to put a manual color code on, so I can position them at least in a line that they have the best chance of surviving in case of an attack or an encirclement. But then you ask, why is there a light red unit here in the purple Bryansk front setup? Well, that, my friend, that's an elite division, the 120th Rifle Division. It has a combat value of 9. It has a morale of 46. It gets 99%. I'm giving them as much infantry equipment, artillery, and manpower as they can possibly hold. They have 40 experience on their rifle squad. So this division in a level 2 fort with river and light forest has 22 in defense. So it's the best division, and it has the best position of the entire front line here, as you can say. So it's a strong division in a strong position, and it's kind of an anchor. I like to, like, here is where the weak line ends. So kill these guys if you have to, but then I fall back and reform from this anchor point here. Well, I have nothing here, but I could. Yeah, I hope I don't lose everything. At least he can't just walk through here and maybe there. If he has to do an encirclement, he has to go through here. And oh shoot, he could probably push up here and maybe pin me here, kill these good guys, take out this entire line. Sorry. When you play this, you ask yourself, where would I go as the Germans? I would go up here. I would come up around here and just pin these guys here and kill off this entire line on the front. Yeah. Would I have been better off if I had pulled back to maybe say here? No, it's open ground here. At least here I have some forests, some forts, a river. Yes, it's a bit closer, but I am weak here. It's not to my advantage. This is August 1941. The German army is at its strongest. The Red Army is at its weakest. I might face a disaster in the Oral area the next turn. Who knows? At least I got a new few divisions in here, and I have some cavalry as a second hand and third hand line. But it's not looking good here at all. This is very weak. Sorry, I'm rambling on. This is taking a long time. If you don't like these kind of games, please go watch some other video. If you love advanced long-term war games, there will be a lot of rambling, because this game is huge. It's massive. It's immense. You have never seen anything like it. You didn't know these kind of games existed. Okay, I did not ask for commercials after every single stupid song. There you go. Moving on, further north. The next part of the line is the Western Front. I have changed the color. They're light blue, but I changed the color of them to a dark blue that I find a bit more militarily looking realistic. And these are the guys that defended the border around Minsk and north of the Pripyat marshes down here. So they they were standing next to the from Brest-Litovsk up to Kaunas here, something. They were standing defending this area here, and of course this bulge here. Why don't we put all our best forces here? And the Germans, sneaky, evil bastards, they just, every time, they just encircle this huge pocket here. And now we've fallen back to the Dnieper and more or less not received a lot of reinforcement. So it's a fairly weak army group or front with 53 command limit of 72. I mean 72 is the max, so this gives you an indication of how many divisions is in the. We don't have to check how many troops inside, but how many divisions and units. We have 53 points of units, So it's not even full size yet, because I don't have the troops yet. But the good news about the Western Front is that it defends this area here down to Bryansk from Smolensk, and with a single infantry division line, paratrooper here, a few motorized, and an armored division here as reserves, few paratroopers behind. We are defending a rather strong fortified line behind rivers, in forest. Here, open ground. So I have a double and even triple line here. Forts prepared. So I'm the defense in depth, as it's called. And the Germans are deployed here in another skirmish line. Is that what I should call the skirmish line? Okay, let's call it a defensive disposition. They don't have a huge amount of forces prepared to make a breakthrough and an offensive. I have scouted and made recon plane flights quite liberally here, so I don't see any hidden build-ups of tank formations behind the German line here. And also I know they are deployed further south after the huge encirclement east of Kiev. So I am feeling fairly confident about the Western Front's line. I don't foresee any breakthroughs or even offensives. I don't think the Germans are going to attack. I see we have a few more divisions here, which probably could be used together with the force in the south. Oh shoot! I really have to examine this. I might actually pull back this part of the front. Sorry for repeating myself. Thanks. That's what I wanted to know. I even managed in turn 11 to use part of the Western Front in a counter-offensive. A red tank like this indicates a Soviet attack. A black tank is a German attack in the German turn, so that already happened. But I made a red Soviet attack here, and I managed to push back a full German infantry division standing, because I concentrated a lot of forces and attacked it and pushed it back. Now you might say, look how many Russians there are, and there are so few Germans. How come you can't just attack him and overwhelm him and push him back to the German border? No. A Russian division is much weaker than a German division, and this comes primarily from experience and morale. The German divisions are individually one by one. They're as strong, they have as many infantry and probably about the same quality of equipment and men, but they're so much better trained. The leadership, the HQs, headquarters, have better German leaders with better experience. So one for one, any German unit is worth a lot of Soviet units. So if I want to push back one German division, I have to attack with the maximum allowed. Okay, I got 8 odds to 1, so I got 8 to 1 there. But still, if I don't use 9, you can have at the most 3 divisions in each province. So if I fill up 3 provinces with 3 divisions each, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 divisions, and I attack one single German divisions, then I can be fairly confident, maybe even using tank divisions as a reserve behind. I'm hoping to be lucky for the commander to be able to send them in, so even attacking with even more than 9 divisions. If I do that, yes, I can push back one German division. Good for me, I made a counterattack, and that gives me combat experience, a lot of losses, a lot more losses than the Germans are taking, but it also gives me victories, which is important, because if I gain victories, my divisions might be upgraded to guard status, which is a Soviet elite configuration. Better divisions with better morale, and that's a long-term goal. I have to transform elite divisions into guards. So it wasn't really necessary to push that back, but I wanted combat experience. I paid dearly in blood, but I gained an important Soviet victory with this army. The tan brown front army group is the reserve front under General Bogdanov. Oh, he's got really bad stats. 3.0. He's a clutch. He's a friend of Stalin. That's why he's still in command and not hasn't been shot or replaced. The reserve front is responsible for holding from Veliki Luki down all the way here to Smolensk. So it's preventing a direct assault via Vyazma to Moscow. Probably bypassing Rzhev and Kaluga, the two frontal flank cities. I have been trying to construct a secondary front line here in the marshes and forests with the open provinces having a few levels of fortifications. These troops have been removed. I've been establishing a third fallback position here with some refitting reservists resting up. Jesus. I wish my streaming software would allow me to log into YouTube so I could show you my logged in paid for YouTube channel, so you wouldn't have to listen and I wouldn't have to remove the commercials. Sorry about that. This is just the best we can do today. Otherwise I would be stuck with browsing YouTube tutorials on how to learn how to stream. It's not optimal in my opinion. Okay, let's examine the Moscow defenses before we go back to the Western Front. We have a bunch of white units sitting around Moscow here, building forts. Yeah, those are directly under Stavka command, so they are not assigned to any headquarters yet. They're not assigned to a front, army, or corps. They're just sitting in Stavka and usually on refit mode, which means they're resting, rebuilding experience and morale, and gaining troops and new reinforcements faster than possible. We also have a few divisions around here with color. They have been railed in, going by train to sit here, build force and rest, and then they're gonna take the train back to their parent formation somewhere else on the map. Do I expect Germany to reach Moscow in 6 more turns? No, I don't. Because again, we see we have had a bit of a German push in this area around here. My initial defense line started around here and he's pushed it up and pushed me back here. Made some very minor encirclements here, like first 2 divisions and then 1 division. So the central push, I've seen 2-3 motorized and panzer divisions in this area. I have to say I'm very happy with how this part of the front developed. I am going to be able to keep Moscow. I don't see any way he will be able to take Moscow in 1941. Let's examine the Western Front, no, the Reserve Front, a little bit closer. It starts with Vatutin's a very good leader at 6.8 value. He's great. He can handle tanks. He can handle infantry. He's one of the best generals in the Soviet army. He's almost he's actually as good as an average German general. Imagine that. And also we can see he has a lot of red divisions. He has an elite division, light red. And what is this? An orange division, you ask yourself, what is that? Well, that's something I cooked up with morale 50 and experience 50. This is one of the shock divisions in the German or in the Soviet army. It has 100% forces available to recruit in it for reinforcements. It's the best divisions I have. They're very valuable. I try to really not lose them, and it's been part of a second counter-attack in this area together with the Western Front, so they gained a victory pushing that back. So an elite army, the 20th Army under Vatutin, it has 24 units out of 24. It's not overstacked. Vatutin can handle 24 unit capacity. That's probably about 12 divisions. One division is 2 points. So let's say he has 12 divisions. But that's a lot for one army. Because soon he won't be able to command more than 21. Shoot! Do you have to have an ad after every single video? Stupid, stupid YouTube. Also you see we've been digging in level 2 forts in 3 lines, and the front line is actually going above 2.10 towards 3. So we have very strong forts here, and the Germans are rather weak. Again, we see one infantry division with only one motorized behind as a reserve. So no, I am doing local counterattacks here to gain. The Western Front has sent in a crappy reserve army just to sit here, because in the mishmash fallback, I mean, I'd want these guys to be further south to along with the other guys. That's not how it turned out. I was in chaos. Troops were setting up wherever they could, and now they're here, so they're just sitting out of order. And if you get OECD, this is gonna hurt your eyes, but they'll just have to sit there for now. Hopefully one day excuse me, I'll be able to rearrange the front lines. I could imagine taking a depleted Western Front army and fill that in here, and just have the Western Front. Let's use a blue color for the Western Front because it's kind of blue, defending this entire front here, and then take Vatutin's elite 20th Army out of the line and have the Western Front as a, I don't know, mobile reserve, or use it for a counter offensive out here, or something. But it's not how I want to deploy it now. But since I've been in such chaos up until turn 11, things aren't always that neat and organized yet. Got another decent army here. It's been kind of under threat. It's lost a couple of divisions, it's been under threat here, but I managed to move up a small 3-division army and reinforce the line, so now it's looking more stable. Also, there are two, these are not mountains, but they're rough, so very hilly terrain, very good defensive terrain, along with forests and rivers and marshes. The Germans just ran into difficult defensive terrain here. They obviously is interested in trying to push through these marshes here into the open terrain here and encircle this town called, I dare you to pronounce this, I don't know any gamer who is able to pronounce Velikie Luki. I'd say that's the best way to pronounce it. I have Jesus, just skip the music for a while. I can't be bothered with that. I know it makes the stream a bit dry and boring, but for now we go without music. Anyways, Veliki Luki, I would have expected this to fall. The Germans been passive in this area. I'd imagine if they had focused these skirmish lines, they could have made, together with this bunch of infantry, they could have pushed and outflanked me. The Germans were kind of aiming to do just that, but they removed the 2-3 motorized panzer divisions from here and didn't quite successfully. I have a double line with 2 infantry divisions here, values of 20, 21, 20, 13. So I think we stopped them here, and that's great. It's very far west, and it's turn 11. I mean, this is not an important town, but I guess morally it feels great to keep these hills, the Valdoi hills, under, so I don't have to push the Germans out from here. Next up is the Green Army, the Green Army Group headquarter front. It's the Moscow military district. It's half a front. You can only have 36 command points instead of 72. But so there's 2 armies under the, and basically these are all Moscow PM rifle divisions, 9 of them. I don't know what PM stands for. Probably like rifle in Russian. So they're hastily recruited new raw recruit low quality divisions. You don't see any red troops, any red divisions here. They, even though they're sitting in decent terrain, forest, marsh, with at least level 1 force, they have combat values of 9, 13, 11, 12, 11, 13. So not good troops. But who cares? This is a perfect area for raw recruits to just sit and defend, because the Germans don't want to push. They pushed me out of these marshes. I wish I was sitting in the marshes, because it's better terrain. Didn't have the troops to do that, so I had to fall back. The Germans are not pushing, and I'm not pushing, so we're just sitting here in no man's land watching each other. Because who wants to fight over these Russian marshes areas? Well, the Russian wants to later when we have a shitload of troops, but now no one wants to fight about that. So basically I managed to have a weak newly raised Soviet army, the 29th Army, under a decent commander, Maslenikov 5.4, and I love how I can defend a huge length of the front, 9 provinces with 1 single army. Thank you, Germany, for letting me do that. That allows me to focus a lot of more forces in more important areas. Next we had another, it's a bit weird that the Moscow defensive force, they are supposed to be, the headquarters is here at Moscow, so they're supposed to defend Moscow now, but they ended up here. And that's just how the game develops sometimes. If you had followed this match from the start, you would have understood how this developed, but yeah, now they're here. The laying down 8 eternity symbol, that's just air bases, so they have a few air bases sitting on their rail lines a few provinces back. Very few planes on there though, because this is not a high intensity combat area. It's just defense here. So let's zoom out and go back a bit in time, and I'll explain what happened in the match. I hastily introduced the German, I think, main offensive plan for 1941, which was the capture of Leningrad. Leningrad is a huge town. It has a lot of industry. It has heavy tank factories from the start. It has a lot of forts. It has a naval base called Oranienburg, and it could connect Finland to Germany if captured. So it's very potentially reasonable for the German player to pick Leningrad as the 1941 major offensive goal, even over Moscow, even over the south, the Don Basin and all its industry and its route to the Caucasus with its oil. And this is grand strategy here now we're talking. So let's say you can pick one out of three main goals, taking all this area here with the industry, the static aircraft carrier that threatened to bomb the Ploesti oil fields in Romania, that Hitler was very concerned with. And from here Hitler wanted to, he didn't care about Stalingrad over here, he wanted to push down and take the oil. And here we have, in this area here, we have wheat, we have industry, we have coal, steel. It's a hugely economically important area for the Russians. Game wise, you easily push up to the Dnieper. There's no way you can stop that. But as you can see, pushing over the Dnieper, capturing the Stalina, here's a lot of industry. Rostov has a lot of industry. Stalingrad has a lot of industry. Kharkov up here has a lot of industry. This could be your main objective of 1941. You can take some tank formations, some panzers from the Army Group Center and send them south, and you can be very strong here. It's great tank country. It's open ground everywhere. See how many green clear terrain you have here. It's very hard, it's very difficult to stop the Germans from doing this. So let's call this one possible major German main goal of the. This is what Hitler wanted to do historically. Well, he wanted also to grab. This is a no-brainer. I mean, why don't you want to destroy the Red Army by the Polish border? If you can't do it here, you just encircle them along the Dnieper around here. Like I had a lot of it. This is the first destruction area. Then you destroy them again here around Smolensk, along the Dnieper River. If that's not possible, why don't you encircle them another time when they're defending Rzhev, Vyazma and Kaluga? This happened historically. I do not think we will see this in this game because the Germans are too weak to push towards Moscow. And then finally, if the Soviets hasn't surrendered, you take Kalinin, you take Ryazan, and you encircle Moscow with all its industries, airplane and tank production, manpower, and the elite forces of the Red Army that will be sure to defend this area. And you take Moscow, and you don't win the war, but it's a railway hub with a lot of communication, a lot of industry, and you cut off the southern from the northern front of the Red Armies, so you have to move around here if you want to send troops, and you have excellent terrain to sit in the bad blizzard winter weather that's gonna hit in from December on. So this is case 2 of the German headquarters summer of 41 major planning. The third alternative scenario is probably reinforcing Army Group North and aiming to take out Leningrad. And I believe this is what my German opponent wanted to do. Well, I don't believe it, I know it. Of course, look, if you see here, this bulge here has a huge concentration of German elite forces. Army Group North in itself starts strong with very high quality infantry formations. I believe this German player reinforced with further motorized and panzer divisions and infantry to protect its front line. And if he had been playing versus the AI, the artificial robot player, there's no doubt about it, he would have pushed through and encircled Leningrad and captured a province here, so that the only communication is over this lake from the Osinovets harbor. So and probably he would have he was aiming. Okay, let's see. There we go. He was aiming to cut off this rail line here, and probably link up with the Finnish. Here's a port symbol. Here's a port symbol. Here's a port symbol. Here's a port symbol. There are 4 ports on Lake Ladoga. If the Germans cut off here or here, you can still send supply and stuff into Leningrad, and Leningrad can keep on being sieged as they were historically for 3 years more or less, as an isolated pocket supplied by lake, or what's it called, seaborne supply. But with this German push here, I know that he wanted to do a cut off all the ports. If you cut off and join up with the Finns here, Leningrad will be isolated, and all these forces in here, which is, I mean, you have to defend Leningrad, right? A lot of forces start here, a lot of forces end up here as reinforcements. So he could have cut off maybe an entire army group front, maybe even more. We're talking hundreds of thousands of prisoners of war that slowly will. And he doesn't have to make a frontal assault with his elites over rivers, in marshes, in high level forts that existed from the start, and that the Soviet player is sure to construct during the first couple of turns, weeks of the campaign. So a very sound plan, in my opinion. A plan that has very high potential of succeeding, and is very difficult to stop. Now, I was, in citation marks, lucky enough, as I said earlier, to send a lot of high quality troops from the south and center towards the north. We will examine that soon. So, what happened early, after the Germans captured Pskov, they pushed up here and crossed this river line here, where I had put up defenses, and also I put up defenses here towards Novgorod. I mean, you don't know, is Germany going to go here, or is Germany going to go here? The right hook flank, or the left hook straight forward? So I had defenses here. I had quite powerful defenses, but you're so weak early in the game that they were managed to push up. So I established the next line of defense around here, and then I managed to put up more defenses here, and then I managed to put up more defenses here, and at one point I thought that, hey, you know what, Leningrad's gonna fall. I'm not going to be able to defend Leningrad. I need to evacuate my high quality troops over this way. Sorry, when I do Russia I should go over to another color. I want to deploy my best troops here, so in case Germany cuts off Leningrad, at least my best troops are saved. And my low quality troops, let's call them reserves and militia, yeah, they're gonna starve to death. They're gonna delay, and Germany is gonna take a huge haul of prisoners, and and it's going to be a disaster, but at least I have what remains are my main quality troops. So instead of trying to set up a good defense here between the Baltic and Novgorod, a strong line that falls back one province after another, a classical siege warfare of the attack of Leningrad, I had to think on my feet, move around, rail in troops, set up and defend a salient. And it's very difficult. Look how huge this front is for me. And he's on the inner lines, and he's on the move, and he has the initiative, and he has the quality troops. So more and more forces were fed into this main operation of 1941. And I can tell you that the Orange Army Group, the Northern Front, remove that, sits on no less than almost 550,000 men. And there's two armies from the Urals military district, and there's another full army group here called, what's it called again? The Northwestern Front, which has another it has another, I guess, 400,000 men or so. Yeah, which means more than a third of the Soviet army is concentrated in this limited area operation. And we have so here and here and here is more than a third of the Red Army is focused here. A huge concentration. Also, the best part of the Soviet army is focused here. Most high quality troops have been protecting from a hook down towards Moscow, have been protecting towards a cutoff of this rail line that leads to Leningrad. They've been used at digging in a secondary line. So if I hadn't concentrated all the best divisions, leaders, artillery units, basically scrounged together as much of the best resources as I possibly can by kind of stripping the rest of the front, I'm fairly certain the Germans would have broken through and it would have been a disaster in Leningrad. So to be honest, in a way I was a bit lucky that I had decided to focus on trying to fortify with elite reserves the initial front line when I realized this was the plan operations. And I guess the Germans were a bit unlucky that I didn't fully focus on defending Moscow and saying, hey, to hell with Leningrad. You know, I'll make him pay for it by advancing into the forts here. I know it's going to fall, but I'm just going to leave bad troops here, and, you know, it's going to delay, and I'll lose Leningrad, and, you know, make it, you know, he would have taken it on the cheap with this right hook. They would have just starved all of them, and he would have been able to maybe even this fall, 41, continue towards Moscow, and the Finnish would be released to enter into Russia proper, and he can use them to set up a very high quality winter fighting force during the winter. So all in all, 2 turns back, I still believed that the Germans were going to take Leningrad. And I started evacuating, and I started to railing in reserves, and I started to deploying my elite armies, not in the second line building fortifications, acting as a strategic reserve. No, more of a local tactical reserve, Leningrad Northern Reserve, sorry. I deployed them in the front line. Here shoot, uh, in this area here, because I wanted to prevent them from, because it was a real threat of them hitting and breaking off this rail line. You can still gain supply into Leningrad around here, the marshes, from a railhead here, but that's a huge truck transportation problem. So this rail line here was vital for me to prevent with my best forces in the entire army. And I managed that. I stopped him. And the German army changed their focus. They started to from heading northeast, they started instead advancing and chopping up, taking small encirclements, killing off troops, and heading more in this. Excuse me. They turned from pushing up here. They turned back and started pushing up northwest instead, and they reinforced this area because it was very weak, the Novgorod area, and it become instead an encirclement operation of more local proportions here. And as you can see, they have made a pocket here. Those troops are dead. They just don't know it yet. This is what happened this turn. In the German phase of turn 11, they pulled over, no, they advanced over, excuse me, this river line here. They took out these marshes. They pushed into here. I guess they started around here. And they made a spearhead with panzers and SS motorized here, and they pushed into the Novgorod line here and pushed me back. And thereby they made a tactical success when they created this pocket of 5 formations. I managed to open up the pocket because they couldn't quite get a division into this province here, so I get supply. I also used transport planes and bomber planes to send in airdropped supplies and ammunition to these troops. So even though they started isolated at the beginning of the turn, now they are in somewhat better shape, which means next turn Germany can't just attack them and make them surrender. They have to cut them off and isolate them again, and 2 turns from now they will be able to mop them up, take them prisoner, shatter them, or make them surrender. So yes, they are sacrificial troops that just stay here for now. Being isolated in zone of control next to German units, they are too slow to evacuate this semi-pocket here. There's no way I can get them out, so I just spread them out. They sit in their forts, in their marshes, and they delay the Germans. That's just the way the game works. I wish I could pull back to the proper Soviet main line of defense here and use them instead for something useful. I don't like having them eliminated 2 turns from now down here, but I can't get them out. So the best thing I can do is just reinforce them as much as possible and use them to slow down the Germans. And here we're gonna take a 2-minute break. I will not stop the stream because Jesus, it's just a hassle to restart it. So what I'll do is I'll try to make you enjoy some. Oh, why don't we just start this? This is the proper YouTube that I have, so you can watch Katusha for a while. I'll be right back. 2 minutes. guess you didn't get the music. I have to use the streaming software for you to. I can hear the music, but you can't. Sorry about that. Properties. This is the playlist from YouTube I want to show. And for some reason, you have to cut it over and over in and no. Mm-hmm. I'm not at all happy with how Streamlabs OBS handles browser interaction. I would want for you to be able to just listen to the music from YouTube. I mean, I can pause it. I can't go back to the previous song. I can't log in to my YouTube account. I can't give the original link apparently. That's not the link I'm linking. Sorry, this is horrible streaming, I realize that, but it's just technical limitations. So here's the link to the YouTube page I want to stream. It's a streaming video and here's the browser source and here's the URL to that's it. And it doesn't work. I'm confused and I'm frustrated, and I'm it worked earlier. If I nope. Oh, here we go. I had to enable refresh browser when scene becomes active. That I didn't have to do that earlier. Who cares? Here we go. Back to War in the East. The mammoth game of combat on the Eastern Front, 1941 to 1945. Turns out streaming involves a lot of talking. Who would have figured? Surprise, surprise. And I can't wonder and ask myself, is anyone ever going to watch? Oh, wait. I have a watcher. I can't see my chat while I play the game, and I'm streaming everything that's shown on my screen. There's delay. But what I can do is use this on-screen drawing tool that you've been seeing me using. See, if I can't draw on the screen and show you all these fancy lines unless I make this complicated setup. It's not optimal at all. Okay, let's see How do I get back to the chat window? I think I have one viewer, which is better than none. If that's the case, it's not a war gamer. It's not a computer gamer. It's a female. It's a female viewer. Okay. So enough about streaming. Um, do you want to watch an ad about McDonald's? I don't. But I do want to listen to the Soviet anthem while I play the Soviet Union. As a matter of fact, I haven't moved a single unit. All these guys here on the map, they can obviously move. It's just that I am too busy explaining the background and the game and the campaign. And if I do ever stream this game again, this match, which I plan to do, this is an introductory stream and video, and so others not going to be as long, and they're going to be about moving pieces and playing. This is about explaining the setup, the background, and showing how the game works. Why can't I tab? Hmm. 3 tittare. I believe I am one of the viewers. In this Twitch client window, I am watching myself stream. This is how I know what other streamers are seeing. I have to tab out to the proper. Also, I increase my viewer numbers by 100%, which is. Yeah, sure. You should start wargaming, Sara. It's an excellent hobby. Keeps your mind nimble, and it's a lot of strategic thinking and diplomacy, and it's an excellent intellectual hobby. Wargaming, extremely nerdy, of course. And you see some of streams and games where you have millions of players. The guys who make this game, they have maybe 10,000 followers on Twitch. It's old man with no life. Yeah, Barbarossa is. If you write in chat in English, everyone will understand what you're saying. So it's preferable to keep it an English chat. But Barbarossa was the name of the operation that the Germans launched to invade the Soviet Union in 1941. Hitler wanted to eradicate the communists, the Bolsheviks, because they were the evil, together with the Jews, in the world, and they wanted economical assets in the Lebensraum in the east. But Barbarossa was a 12th or 11th century emperor of the Holy German Empire, and he went on a crusade in the Balkans. He was going to Jerusalem like all the crusades, but when he was in the Balkans, his advisors and knights told him like, "Hey, we shouldn't cross this river. It's a spring flood in it. It's very dangerous. You might drown." And he was like, "I'm not gonna drown." So he crossed this very rapid river in the Balkans. And you know what happened to Emperor Barbarossa? Which means red beard, red hair, which he apparently had. He drowned. So just like the original German emperor drowned in a spring river in the Balkans, the German army drowned on the steppes of the Russian plain, and the Red Army There's a war movie. Sorry, I'm watching YouTube. haven't seen this war movie. Is it new? Afghanistan or yeah, it looks like Afghanistan or Iraq. Anyway, here we go. I'm planning to send this video either on YouTube or on Twitch as a recording to some of my wargaming friends and have them watch it after I recorded it. So for now it's a live streaming, but yeah, it might actually come to someone watching this in the future. Where's my Twitch window? Here. Poor fella, but that's what happens in war. Death and more death. Well, he wasn't in a war. He was on a crusade versus the infidels, the Muslims in the Middle East. So basically they were always at eternal war with, because they had the wrong faith, right? Deus vult. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So this was a crusade against Bolshevism, and actually a lot of Dutch and even Scandinavian people and French people, Spanish people signed up to enter into this war, because in some regards, we all know Nazis are evil, but in some regards in Europe it was perceived as a crusade versus Bolshevism, which is, as everyone knows, evil as well. Two evil empires fighting each other. But we won't go into politics. We won't. We will touch on politics, we'll mention politics, but we won't go into politics. We'll stay with historical background information, game overview, streaming technological chat interaction, and of course some seriously heavy-duty wargaming scatter-brained talks about Gary Grigsby's War in the East. After this brief intermission, back to setting up the background for turn 11 in the north around Leningrad. Yes, brief background on Finland. I played a first-person shooter a couple of days ago. So when Hitler and Stalin divided up Poland and the Soviet Union took the 3 Baltic states that were created after World War I as he basically gave him an ultimatum that we're going to move Soviet troops in and you will be voluntarily a part of the Soviet Union or else. And then he said to Finland, hey, here's my border right outside Leningrad. I know you Finns have constructed a lot of fortifications here that protects Russia from attacking you. They could be used to attack Leningrad from the north. We don't like that. So give us this area and we'll be friends. We're not going to take all of Finland. We're not going to threaten your independence, even though you've only been a part away from the Russian Empire for 20 years or something. So you stay an independent country. We want just a tiny little bit of Finland, this area here. And we also want this tiny peninsula over here called Hangö. Well, Hankö, I don't know. Where we want a little naval base, and we want to be able to mine the inlet to Leningrad here. Stupid YouTube. Do you want to buy fractional shares? I'm not going to buy that. Drives me crazy. I need to find another way to stream music. This is the best. Well, of course the Finnish said, to hell with you. We're not going to have Soviet troops being able to invade our capital. We're not going to give up our independence that we fought so hard for during the Civil War. We're not going to give you our fortifications in Vyborg. So they fought from December 39 to March 40, and they lost, of course. And the front moved up all the way up to here. But then Finland said, "Hey Germany, are you gonna attack the Soviet Union? Okay, great. We just recapture our old territories here." And some Finnish people said, like, "Hey, why don't we push up and take a little bit more, the Greater Karelia line here, and we could go into Leningrad from the north out to Germans." Nah, let's not do that. Let's take this area, and then we're just gonna sit here on this neutrality line and hope the Russians make peace with us. That's a great plan if Germany wins the war. So what happens in this game is, if you, like me, feel you're kind of strained on troops and the rest of the part of the front, you pull back from here. And you use these forces to stop the Germans here in the south instead. And that worked out splendidly in the end for me, although I lost a couple of divisions. So now I only have these little tiny forts defending my northern front, because the Finnish, they actually are very powerful units. They have very well trained, but they can't attack me. That's just the rules of the game. A bit artificial, I know, not very realistic, but it's a game. There are no naval units, there are no ships. You can go by ship from one control. If I control Tallinn, I can evacuate with boats and ships and send them into Leningrad, which is a harbor, this anchor symbol. But now we don't have to concern ourselves with that, because we have a Russian front running from Oranienburg, the naval base, here. And I was able to hold Novgorod for quite a while, but then I was pushed back to our current line here. Then I have not very good troops in the center here, because I kind of want the Germans to attack where they are attacking. I kind of lure them into set up a bait, like, "Hey guys, why don't you take this instead of cutting off the rail line and cutting off Leningrad? Why don't you push into my line here and go the hard way all the way up to Leningrad here? Why don't you look, I'm not that strong here where you want to go here." And they did, and they had tactical success. And that way I was able to concentrate which forces. Shoot. As you can tell here, I have managed to gather 3 divisions in each province. So this is the strongest part of the front anywhere. And not only do I have red, light red, but I have my very, very best yellow divisions. These are the best divisions in the Russian army, in the Red Army. And I've been able to attack and push back German divisions here. So I'm launching local counterattacks from the east, and I would say that the Tikhvin-Leningrad railway is saved, because with the Germans focusing towards Leningrad instead of northeast away from Leningrad, he only have very strong armored divisions and infantry divisions, but not strong enough to push back and make breakthroughs through my incredibly strong infantry line here. You see, the terrain is all forest, and here we have heavy forest Texas as well. They're not very common on the map, but they're even better to defend. So basically I can push him back easily, and he can but it's a stalemate, which is what I'm hoping for in this area. Good for me, very good. Next, to the very north, we have some basic gray infantry divisions and blue naval personnel rifle brigades. They're smaller units, but they're high quality, kind of like the paratroopers I was talking about. That's my second line of defense. I'm going into a bit more detail around Leningrad because since this is the major area of operations during 1941. So my plan is basically for the next couple of turns to send in reinforcements by rail. They come from Moscow and they come here and they go on the rail here to Tikhvin, and then they go into, and they can reinforce this area around here. So basically I can move out troops to rest and refit, and I can move back in new fresh troops, cannon fodder units, into Leningrad as long as I hold the main front line heroically with heroes of the Soviet Union. And yes, certain sacrifices have to be made for the motherland. That's just the way it works in war and peace. No music coming across to viewers, but okay with me though. None? What the hell? That's just incredibly annoying. Stupid audio input browser source. So no music? Oh my god, and I've been... That's just incredibly annoying that music is not coming across. Okay. Since I've been working so hard to get that going, and why isn't that the case? Browser source? Oh yeah, look, 0. Yeah, you're right. The browser source does not give an indication of volume. I have no idea why it should. Properties. Doesn't say anything about sound. Yeah. I'll be honest. So I'm able to show videos from YouTube, but I can't stream the sound. That's just stupid. Let me try something out. I'm just gonna remove this stupid browser, YouTube, and I'm gonna add audio. To hell with it. No, it's not gonna be any music for now. Stupid streaming software. Anyways, where were we? Operation of Leningrad. The orange units, they are from the northern front under Popov, and it's a strong front, army headquarters. It needs to be, because it's defending a very important area of the front here. What I expect will happen is the Germans will continue to push hex by hex by hex, and maybe make smaller encirclements like this somewhere here and there, because they have very strong units in this area, and a lot of them. And I don't know if I'm able to prevent the Germans from breaking through all the way up here and reaching the Lake Ladoga beach somewhere. If they do, we have the historical situation, because historically the Germans went from here to here, and they cut off Leningrad by land, the railway, and they reached the Lake Ladoga shores. So Soviet reinforcements could not enter into Leningrad by land. But as I said earlier, it didn't really, well, it mattered of course, but they could still get some supplies and evacuate civilian population, etc. through over the ice when the lake was frozen in the winter time, and also by ship. So we have a similar situation in the game, that there can be a siege of Leningrad. And that's better than Germany, if the Germans reach somewhere here. That's a better situation than if they capture Leningrad, so I'm good with that. But hopefully I'll be able to stop the Germans from reaching the shores of Ladoga and maintain a front line in front of Leningrad. Maybe somewhere here. That would be excellent. That's my main goal. And I am putting indirect threat from the east, as I said earlier here. But I am quite weak. These are not the best forces. They don't have any good forts. They are sacrificial units, ready to die for the defense of Leningrad if necessary, whereas the rest are elite forces that I want to save in case Leningrad falls, so they can retreat to the east. But anyway, Leningrad hasn't been surrounded. The German breakthrough has been contained and stopped. No, not stopped. Halted. It's been countered. It's being the Germans still have to fight to reach the outskirts of Leningrad and cut them off. It's an open question whether they're going to achieve success or not. I do believe I might be able to prevent them from encircling Leningrad. And in that case, that's an excellent result of the summer of 1941, even though I suffered a lot of casualties. I focused most of my air force up here. I have my best leaders. I have my best support units in artillery up here. I have my best divisions. This is where I focus most of my resources, as well as the Germans. So very heavy fighting in this area. I got a a stream question. Is it a preference to have all historical facts on point personally to be able to play the game well? Well, it's a historical game. They have done immense research in this game. They have every single division, brigade, leader, general, admiral, air unit. It's amazing. The Soviet commands 1,100 different units, and they're all historically correct. It's partisans, it's rifle divisions, it's sapper battalions, and they have 350 air squadrons with different models. I'll just show very briefly. So it's just not airplanes. It's this airplane. It has this many bombs and machine guns, and it flies this fast. And they got all the tanks, and it's so detailed. I won't even go into it. It's too much to talk about. There's millions. So a board game where you set up pieces on a board and roll dice, you could never do this level of detail. Because it's a computer game, you can have kind of a board game where you move board game pieces around digitally. But it's very historically accurate. But do you need to know any history? Well, yes, I guess it helps to know what the Germans did historically. You can compare your own progress. You can kind of know that this might happen again. But of course, playing the game is the best experience. I only played 1.5 other matches versus human opponents first, so I have very little experience in this game. And why is that? Yeah, it takes many hours to complete just one turn, 1 week, and there are 250 turns. So it takes ages to get anywhere in this game. And I say very, very few games, if any, are ever completed. It's a mission rather than a game. So, but it doesn't hurt. And I suppose you learn a bit of history. I guess you are interested in World War II history if you play these kind of games. But they always, as soon as you start the game, they move away from what happened. It's a counterfactual what if history outplay of World War II that you're playing on the Eastern Front. It's not. It's simulation. Yeah, that's a lot of history nerdery. What a shame there was no music. I wonder how long we've gone in the stream. Is there a way to tell that? Probably not. Oh yes, there is. 2 hours and 20 minutes. That is long enough. I will be rounding off. I hope this brief introduction has given an introduction to the game itself, an introduction to kind of the historical settings, an introduction to the very match I am playing versus my opponent, which I might be recording more of in the future. And I hope you enjoyed the stream, and maybe someone will watch the continuation where I actually move some pieces around. But that will be for another day. So thank you very much for watching, and have a good day. Goodbye.